You damn right. Let's go Modcast on a Tuesday during the springtime here. It's a noon start for the Modcast on Tuesdays. We're going to see if we can get all the intel out of these guys that we can. Anwar Richardson, Jason Sukamel, Alex Dunlap of Orange Bloods. Guys, we good? We seeing everything good? I was having issues yesterday. So is everything good? Am I not blurry? Am I fine?
Yeah, you look great. Well, I shouldn't say. Well, hold on. Let me back. You don't look great. You look clear. How about that? Yeah.
My wife would say, "What the hell? What? No, that's not it." But we welcome everybody into the chat. Our man Jareth is in there, one of our favorite names, very proper sounding, Jareth. Throwing out the emoji and the yo. Our man Chris Bennett is out in Washington State. Just got out of surgery, watching from home. Chris, hope you're doing well, man. If you're going through that kind of stuff, we do hope you're doing all right. We got a lot of things to get into today. We're going to start with a little recruiting update. We'll talk about the team. If there's anything to update on basketball stuff as the teams get ready for, on the men's side, a play-in game, on the women's side, a tournament game, and then it's a week until spring practice. Things just roll so quickly. We're 1 week away from spring practice as we're talking to you today on this Tuesday. So let's jump right into it. And Jason, we're going to start with you and a young man named Chase Calicut. I love a good name. I also like a long DB. Give me some 6'2", 6'3", or in this case, 6'4" on a safety. For the folks that don't know yet, tell them about Chase Calicut. What do we need to know?
Yeah, Chase, you said it. Long safety, 6'4". What is he about? I don't know what we have him listed. Let me check that. 195. He's probably a little shade over 200 now. But big rangy safety, was at the OT7 tournament up in Dallas, which is a big 7-on-7 tournament. I joked with Anwar on his show. Chase Calicut from Houston North Shore played on the South Florida elite team. So how that works, I don't know. They also had a kid from California on the South Florida elite team. Somehow all these guys merged up in the Dallas area to play in a big 7-on-7 tournament. But Chase is interesting. Texas offered him, I believe it was early January, if I'm not mistaken. So a fairly recent offer, right? And immediately Texas moved way up his list. Well, he comes to the junior day in late January at Texas, and he was very open at that time. He's like, hey, Texas is my number one school. Texas is my number one school. Well, he's got a Texas official visit set up. He's got Michigan. He now has Washington. And I see him at this tournament on Saturday, and he's rocking like a Texas sleeve. This guys wear the sleeves, and he's got the Texas gloves too. So I talked to him like, Chase, come on, talk to me about the gloves and the sleeve. And he said, hey, man, I'm here in Dallas. I got to represent Texas. And just talks about how much he loves Texas. He did say, if I quote him, they're leading my recruitment, I think, he said. And he said they'd definitely be top 3 for sure. So I think this one is trending Texas's direction. But like I said, schools like Michigan, he did visit Washington a couple of weeks ago, really liked that Washington visit. So, in fact, most people thought maybe Michigan might be some competition. I'm telling you, I think Washington is probably second for Chase Calicut. Then you got schools like Alabama and Ole Miss might be rounding this one out. So keep an eye on Washington, but that's a long way from home, Chad, for a guy that's in Houston. Yeah. I think this one looks really good for Texas. The other connection there is Mark Orphy, the new Texas cornerbacks coach, went to North Shore. So he's been hitting up Chase Calicut every day, telling him like, hey, North Shore, look what we can do, and just talking Texas. And it's interesting because Calicut's a safety. Coach O coaches cornerbacks, but wisely Texas has him leading the charge on Chase Calicut, who's a big-time player. He's a Rivals 100 player. He's top 75 in the country, so big-time prospect, big-time player. You got schools like Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Michigan coming at you. That says all you need to know. But Texas looks really good for Chase Calicut right now.
Yep. Do you know who he looks like to me, Jason?
Who's that? Go ahead.
Do you remember Tyler Owens?
Yes. Yeah, sure do.
If you've seen these guys, how do you compare him to him physically?
Tyler wasn't. What is Tyler listed? I don't remember him being quite as tall as Chase, and I think Tyler might have been maybe a bit more explosive in terms of an athlete. But yeah, they're similar frames, and both big, long, rangy safeties they can cover them, and they're not just your big typical power, heavy hitter in the safety position. These guys can actually cover and make plays in space. So it's not a terrible comparison. How tall is Kyler? Do you have him listed?
I just now pulled it up. It's like some services had him at 6'3". I think looks like Rivals had him at 6'2".
Yeah, but they're, like I said, in the same ball. And quite frankly, Chase might be a shade under 6'4". So you're probably within about an inch of each other.
I just thought the huddles look alike. He's got a really impressive huddle.
He was good at this tournament on Saturday too. And 7-on-7, I mean, it's all about making plays in space. And you worry about a guy with that kind of length. Okay, can he play in space and can he cover? And Chase Calicut can do all those things.
Jason, when you mentioned the North Shore connection, and to your point about Washington being a long way away, when I saw the other schools that you listed on orangebloods.com as the ones he's looking at, that Ole Miss, Bama, Washington, Michigan, all of those are a long way from North Shore. And then for him to throw in the line about Orfeh and, whatever it was about he knows what's going on the east side and that kind of a thing, like you could feel that connection that's very local, and the other schools he's looking at are certainly not that. That's got to be, I would think, an advantage for Texas, because there doesn't feel like there's any other regional schools he's into right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, let's say this, Chad, and I should have said this originally. Okay, so he had on the Texas stuff, and I took a picture of him, and he had his headgear on, okay, because they wear headgear when they're playing. Mm-hmm. Well, a little bit later, Sam Spiegelman from Rivals like, hey, Chase, let me get a picture of you with the sleeve and the gloves. But Chase, they weren't playing, so he didn't have his headgear. He had on a baseball cap. He had on an SMU baseball cap.
Oh.
And I said to Chase, hey, you got the Texas gear on, but you got the SMU lid on there. So I was like, how's that work? And he goes, well, actually, I just went to SMU like a couple of days ago before playing in this tournament. And he really talked up SMU because we were just kind of talking off the record. He said, man, they got it going on. I was like, yeah, the program's on the rise and, made the college football playoffs and they're recruiting well. So I'm not saying he's going to LSU. I think Texas has a significant advantage, but he did visit LSU and likes LSU a lot. And I'll say that one more thing about Chase. Very close with his family. I'm not saying that they wouldn't encourage him, but be supportive of him to go to Washington or Michigan or Ole Miss, Alabama. But he's very close. And a lot of times as these recruitments go on, those kind of things matter. You want to stay close to home, stay close to family. All that being said, Chad, listen, you got to say it. It's today's day and age. Chase Calicut's a big-time player. If some school comes in like Ole Miss and says, hey, we love this kid, we're going to drop a huge NIL offer, well, that's a great equalizer, right? So that can erase a lot of advantages that Texas has.
No doubt. Modcast on a Tuesday. Shout out to Daily and Black, one of our great partners and the sponsor of the Modcast each and every week. In fact, we'll throw a QR code out there. If you need some legal assistance, this is the place. Remember, it's DALYBlack.com, or just hit the QR code there and it will get you to all the different things they can do for you. Shout out to Daily and Black. So we start out with a little Chase Calicut discussion. Also, Jason, before we leave recruiting, an Elite 11 event going on this weekend in Austin. Is that correct?
It's labeled as Austin, Chad. I'll actually be going to Del Valley. So it's in Del Valley.
Okay. Austin adjacent.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. I'll be in Del Valley this weekend.
Jason, it's like all the tournaments that our kids play in.
Yeah.
And they always list the major city, but then it's always like 45 minutes away from it.
My favorite example of that, Onward, I think I've mentioned it, but when I went to a pylon 7-on-7 tournament in Las Vegas, I'm like, hell yeah, Vegas. I had to drive like 45 minutes. It was in Bullhead, Arizona. It wasn't even in Nevada.
That's a whole nother level of bad advertising if it's not even in the state that they.
Don't get me wrong. I found a way to spend one night in Vegas before I flew home, but it's in Del Valley, but it's an Elite 11. When people hear that, if you're recruiting fans, you think quarterback competition, which it is. I mean, there'll be 4 hours of quarterback competition, but they've also started doing last year, and this is the second year. It's called an all 22. So they'll actually have offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and doing some of those, putting those guys through some work too. So I haven't seen a roster yet. I'll get that later in the week. So I can't tell you who all will be there. The only one I know will be there will be Diabell, the Texas quarterback commitment, but we'll see, what offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, and so forth show up. So it's always a good event. Those guys do a good job, and I'll be out there Saturday covering that.
Is that Saturday and Sunday, or just Saturday, or what?
Just Saturday. That's a one-day deal, Alex.
Can you still put in credentials for that?
I don't know. You know what? Remind me when the show's over, and I will. I'm not sure what the deadline is. I can take a look though.
Okay.
Jason, from the Texas fan perspective, I'm not sure how your Dia Bell update could have been any better. I know you and Anwar talked a lot about it today on the Old Fashioned. Go check out Tuesday's Old Fashioned for a drawn-out discussion of the Dia Bell situation. But, man, if I was a Texas fan, the idea of – we always talk about Pied Pipers are good. Pied Piper quarterbacks, I think, are even better. And, Jason, that seems like exactly what this kid's going to be.
Yeah, and potential 5-star Pied Piper quarterbacks with winning personality. I mean, Dia's got the whole package. He's just, he really is. He really does, man. I mean, good parents, good family, and it shines through in him. I mean, he's just a quality kid. But, yeah, I mean, you know, you've got schools like Alabama and Georgia just offered him, and Ohio State and LSU. They're still working on him, right? But Dia, I'm not saying he has zero interest, because, I mean, he's polite enough and smart enough, honestly. Like, he's not going to cut off communication. What happens if, God forbid, Sark goes pro or something next year? So, you know, Dia's not cutting off communication, but he's kind of respectfully saying, hey, I hear you, I appreciate you, but I'm going to Texas. He's not taking any other visits anywhere but Texas as of right now. He's going to be at the Elite 11 deal, like I said, so he'll be in Austin area this weekend. He'll be back in Austin on the 26th. He's got his Texas official visit. He rattled off about 10 guys that he's trying to recruit. He talks to AJ Milwee each week and says, okay, let's get some names so I can start working on them. So, yeah, I mean, he's all in on Texas. And, you know, again, think of the schools recruiting him, Chad, still. I mean, obviously Texas, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Florida State. If you never watched Dia Bell play, and maybe you haven't, and maybe you never will watch his high school film, you don't need to, right? That just tells you this kid's a badass when you got those kinds of schools coming after you. So, yeah, the good news, like you said, good news for Texas. It was nothing but positive about Texas, and respectful of those other programs, but says, hey, I'm really locked in with Texas. That's all I care about right now.
Yeah, it's good stuff. If you love the Longhorns, Money B, always loving the shows. We appreciate you jumping in, Money B. Also, S. Roan, our man S. Roan, always helping us out, reminding you to like the video and subscribe. Like I always say, if you're not liking on the way in, make sure you like the video on the way out. That would certainly help us out. We'll get into some other Longhorn stuff today. Also want to thank another one of our great partners, and this is one that y'all know is close to my heart, and it is Sinus and Snoring Specialists. I told the story this week. I went home. I went to the in-laws. I went to my wife's home, saw my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and didn't realize he had just gotten going with a CPAP machine. But he said something really important. So listen to what I'm about to say. One of the things he loved about it, not just that he's sleeping better and the wife is saying, man, it's really quiet now. He says, and I didn't have to get up all those times and go to the bathroom at night. That's a part of it I hadn't thought about till my wife goes through that process and they tell her, like, yeah, when you are snoring, going through sleep apnea, you stop breathing. And when you stop breathing, your body has to compensate, has to try to, keep you alive. And one of the things that happens is your kidneys have to work harder in that situation, and therefore you're going to be getting up more during the night. So just another thing to keep in mind, another thing that can get better if you address those issues. Sinus and Snoring Specialists can do that for you. There's your QR code. You can securely call or text on that number, 601-0303, or check out sinussnoringent.com. I also put a post on orangebloods.com today reacting to some of the pro wrestling stuff with John Cena. But I gave you a little bit of info on sinus and snoring. Also, a video's up there of Dr. Slaughter talking about kind of the history of the place. So check them out. Sinus and Snoring Specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. And maybe, just maybe, you're getting up less at night. That's always a good thing as well. All right. If you guys want to jump into the chat, feel free. If you want to send us a super chat, it will go right to the top of the list. Look at Joy. Joy just sending a bunch of hearts to us. Thank you, Joy. We appreciate you.
That's not the real Joy Taylor, by the way.
That is not the real one. It's an imposter.
No. That looks like the Joy Taylor that's on Fox Sports that he's using that avatar.
Ah, I see. Yeah, there it is. We got imitators in the chat. If you guys want to jump in, feel free. We will get to some Texas spring football talk. Before we do that, Anwar, let me just check in with you on a couple things here. We've got since we had the show last week, Texas basketball knows they're not quite in, but they're in Dayton, and they got a chance to get in if they can beat Xavier to grab an 11 seed. As far as what you're hearing, is this wait and see mode for CDC? Does he go and sit, 2 rows back and take a bunch of notes in terms of what he's going to do, when the season's done?
That hasn't usually been CDC's MO. Usually when he's made up his mind, and you don't know that he's made up his mind, but something happens and it happens really quickly. He didn't sit back and take notes as relates to Tom Herman when that situation was there. And if he wanted to, he could have said to himself, well, you know what? They just blew out Colorado in this bowl game. You know what? Well, let's go ahead and run it back. Didn't matter. He already knew who he wanted. The powers that be knew who they wanted. And there was no sitting back and taking notes. And it happened, bam, bam. Tom Herman goes and meets with Chris Delcani in the morning. He's fired. By the evening, we're having a press conference to introduce Sarkisian as the new head coach. David Pierce kind of dangled out there for a little while, and then what happens? It was just bam, bam. David Pierce is gone. Essentially he's gone. And Texas A&M season is finished, and literally it's the next day we got a new baseball coach, right? And so I think the thought process when people say, well, let's see what happens over the next week or 2 weeks or something like that, I don't that's not how Delcani operates. Delcani, when he knows what he wants and what he's going to do, he's already made up his mind. You just won't know it. But when he does, it happens very quickly. When he makes a coaching change, we're not sitting here for weeks and weeks. Now, assistant coaches are different because that's up to the head coach. But when it comes to to getting rid of someone and replacing them, he already has everything figured out. He's not a guy that's just going to fire someone and then just guess. If he's going to replace Rodney Terry's replacement is ready to go. Rodney Terry's replacement already knows what's about to happen, when it's going to happen, and it's a matter of just when the season ends. And I'm not convinced 100%, Chad, that they were prisoner of the moment a few years ago, where that team made it to the Elite Eight, and at that point, it was kind of like, you got to keep them. I don't think that's going to be the prisoner of the moment this time. I think Delcani's he's got an idea of what he's going to do, and more than likely he's going to execute it. Delcani if he wanted to issue something that said Rodney Terry's my guy, and look, he may want to keep Rodney Terry motivated and team motivated and all those kind of things, but at the end of the day, I don't know, Chad, how much this week really weighs in the decision-making process, that if somehow Texas get on a heater, now he's going to I guess I'll figure it out. No, he's already figured it out. It's just a matter of when he's going to let us know what he's figured out.
Yeah, I think that would make a whole lot of sense for what's going to happen, because you're talking about a field of 68 now technically, but we all know what play-in games are, and we always talk about the bar. For what things are. I don't ever hear a Texas fan say the play-in game, almost the tournament is the bar.
At that point, you're hoping now, if you're hoping for the Hail Mary, right, which is get in the play-in game and then, play 2 tough teams and then possibly get to, the last, I don't know. I seem to be doing okay. Am I freezing on anyone's thing?
I don't know. Just as Jason asked it in the chat, I saw Anwar freeze a little, and they're saying Anwar and I are both freezing. Maybe so.
Maybe it's
y'all let us
saying that. Who's saying?
Y'all let it could. Y'all let us know. Is it just what Jason is seeing, or are you guys seeing it? Normally the chat will let us know if stuff is going on.
Yeah, usually they're pretty good about letting us know. So anyway, I think at the end of the day, I forgot what I was saying. So
yeah, well,
there you go. I was in mid thought, and then I'm easily distracted, and then when I get easily distracted, then it's a wrap.
Yeah, well, CDC, we will see what CDC may do. Texas and that play-in game is a little after 8:00 on Wednesday night, and then if they do win, they go late. Last game out on Friday night. If you don't know, it's about 9:00 on that start. If they do end up playing Illinois.
Four of us better get our naps.
Is Xavier any good?
Huh?
Is Xavier any good? I clearly I don't know. Like I don't know. Do you guys know?
They're a slight favorite to beat Texas, Alex. So that tells you about what they are.
Okay.
I'd say they're probably a little better than Texas.
Does anybody, Chad, have you read any you got the breakdown of how the key matchups in this thing, or how it's gonna? Do you have any idea what's? Okay.
No, I do not. I will challenge the Texas team to win this one, and then once they're in the tournament, then I'll read breakdowns. I decided Dayton breakdown. We'll.
Does this count as a tournament appearance, a play-in game? Is it technically a tournament appearance?
Yeah, it shouldn't.
But in the annals of history, will it be a tournament appearance?
I think technically you're allowed to count it. My argument, my OCD says if you're Texas, you shouldn't count it. If you're Texas Southern, count it all you want. When they force you to go in as a conference champion and play at Dayton, I'd say you can call that a tournament berth. Texas and North Carolina, to me, you shouldn't. You should not call it a tournament game. But that's just me. But yes, technically, I think it does. It will count in your record book if you want to say tournament appearance.
No, fair enough.
Yeah. Well,
interesting note.
Again, it goes back to what's your bar? Is this the bar? And I think one of the things that we talked about before. Hopefully, my audio is better. By the way, hopefully, I'm more in sync now. I think I may have adjusted it. I think one of the things that does mean a lot to Chris Del Conte is that President's Cup and being able to say like, hey, we have one of the best athletic departments, if not the best athletic department in the country. And at the end of the day, Ketch and I talked about this yesterday, but it's a really good point, which is, you got a lot of sports that are pretty much kicking ass. You got a lot of great coaches that are right there at Texas. If you look at the Schaefer, if you look at Schloss, what he's able to do, you look at swimming. I mean, you go to rowing, like this, you go down the list. You can go volleyball, you can go softball. I mean, you've got some coaches who are absolutely killing it. Even Steve Sarkisian has been killing it, right? So you've got program, and hell, I didn't even mention track with Coach Flo and the success that he's had and sustained for so many years. Tennis does good, right? And so all these sports are kicking ass, and then you got one of your marquee sports that's supposed to be one of your money makers, and they're not kicking ass. And that I think that's a tough thing for him. And so I think if he's at the point where it's affecting the ability to get the Director's Cup for him, I think that becomes a thing. I think, and the thing is, you've got so many other programs that are doing so well. At some point, you got to look at the other big program and say, okay, this thing needs to be on par with everyone else. And even though you can't go back in time and the Chris Beard thing, that's all left, we know what this thing looked like when you had a really good coach, what it looked like from recruiting, what it looked like from fan support, like what it looked like from coverage, all those things. Texas hasn't been there in a while. So I imagine Chris Del Conte is going to want to get it back.
Yeah, and to that point, Anwar, I love this chat Rex just sent, because forget about basketball, blue bloods. We all know who those teams are, the Kansas and UCLA and Kentucky in that list. But I like what Rex throws out here. Texas bar should be on par with what Florida, Bama, Auburn, Michigan are doing. Football schools with great basketball programs. Like the Iron Bowl schools got together this year, fellas, and it was the very first time they were ever 1-2, but they were. First time the SEC had ever had a 1-2, but Auburn's the overall number 1 seed in this tournament. So I agree with Rex. That's the kind of neighborhood Texas needs to be living in. You can't be we're hoping to get in every year. Be like one of those teams. You don't have to be a number 1 seed, but you got to be solidly in the tournament every year.
Well, the thing is, my only exception to what Rex is saying when he says like Michigan's been doing that for a while. Like, I mean, we grew up on the Fab Five, right? So it's not like this is like brand new for Michigan. So they've been consistent, right? In Florida, you can argue since the Billy Donovan days has really invested into that basketball program. So now the Bama and Auburn arguments might be the better ones as far as the more recency kind of things. But Michigan has been Michigan in a top flight basketball program forever. Florida, we go, again, Billy Donovan, you can go back to Yannick Noah and all those guys. You can go back to, Teddy Dupay. Like they've had talent that's been there. But Texas has to really start holding its own weight. And I joke that, if you're the SEC, this year was kind of like the I-9 trophy of awards, where just about everyone got a trophy this year, because basically there's 14 teams that kind of got into a postseason tournament thing, which is so like, I don't even know how you can even say what the worth is when damn near everybody got in. But Texas more so than anything, Texas has to get back to where they were when they had Chris Beard, and that's just the God honest truth.
Yeah, that's a great point, Anwar, about those two schools. Maybe it's those two in the middle.
Yes,
it really is about that Bama and Auburn thing, where a few years ago, if I say Bama and Auburn are going to be awesome in basketball, you're like, what? Even their fans might have said, okay, whatever, we'll take it. We'll take it as a little something on top of the Sunday, but we don't need it necessarily. That's not what we wake up for. But you got Bama and Auburn playing some pretty damn good basketball. By the way, CDC, I might tell you to I'm not saying that is your list, but, might also want to peek at those two schools and who they've got coaching them if you do end up making a change. All right. This is an interesting name, too. What would you guys I've seen this name pop up a couple times. Sean Miller. If you're going to make a change, guy like Sean Miller, show of hands. Who's all right with Sean Miller?
Why are you asking Alex basketball questions?
I don't know who that is.
Sean Miller, no, the former Arizona guy. Where is he now? Is he still? It's not Arizona anymore. Xavier. Thank you. At Xavier now.
I feel like his name comes up every time there's a job opening.
Yeah,
right? And there's not even a job opening at Texas yet. But
guy's a pretty damn good coach. We'll see what happens if something happens.
He coaches at Xavier, so you can get a first-hand look, I guess, right?
It's true. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of it, but yeah, there you go.
We've seen the names that are out there, right? I mean, it's hard not to love like a Billy Donovan name as well. They need a name with some cachet that's really going to, coach, but they've got to be able to recruit.
Yeah, Donovan's a really interesting idea.
You got this beautiful new arena too. I mean, there's no reason Texas should be. When they played in the Irwin Center, man, the environment was pretty lame. It just was. But they got a great arena, better crowd support. I mean, everything about this thing should be trending up, this program. And it just feels like it's just kind of treading water, just trying to keep its head above water, right? And so
you got an arena. Hey, you got an arena, Jason, when you're charging about $18 for a mixed drink, man. Like, you got to pack that place out and you want to make some money, baby.
Damn. Yeah, that's true. Good point.
I don't know if you've been there, but it is kind of expensive.
Hey, $18 for electric jellyfishes is steep, Anwar. It is. It is steep. But to Jason's point, I think it's a big opportunity that if there is going to be an upgrade, hopefully CDC has wiped the idea out of his brain that like Chris Beard was the perfect guy. And it's just, it was a sad situation, but there's a lot of basketball coaches out there. And I love the Billy Donovan idea. If he cares about it, if he wants that, I dig that fit, man. Sharp dressed man in a suit that coaches, that we know he's a badass coach. He went back-to-back national championships. It was maybe a slightly different era, but boy, I would definitely have a talk with him and see if he wants to come back to college. And there's no buyout from what I'm understanding there too. Somehow these NBA guys nowadays don't have buyouts in their contracts. I didn't realize that.
But the college football players do.
Yeah, right. Right? Like, I don't know. That was the thing.
That's God's honest truth. Did you guys read that article in The Athletic yesterday?
No.
You ought to check it out. Stuart Mandel wrote it with somebody else, and it's wild, man. They're saying that with this transfer portal, I'm not to get us off basketball, but man, they said like with this transfer portal window being the first of sort of the first where there's been these influx of general managers and people in these kind of positions that are negotiating these NIL deals and kind of getting it out of the hands of the NIL collectives who aren't quite as, they're not, those are more donors and accountants and people that are just trying to help the program, as opposed to like dudes who have drawn up contracts and stuff like that before for various athletes. They're saying this was the first time where the transfer portal window, they're like, they were giving all these examples of anonymous Big 12 players or ACC players and some of the language that's in there regarding their buyouts. It's wild, dude. These guys are going to have to pay money to the schools if they leave. It's crazy.
The players in college have buyouts, but Billy Donovan and what's in the other one? Who's the other guy they're looking at in the pros? In the NBA, maybe?
No, I don't know.
I forgot.
Who's the other name? There's some other former college guy that they maybe, and they don't have buyouts.
Oh, Quinn
Snyder. Thank you. Quinn Snyder, that apparently also doesn't have a buyout, but the linebacker at Utah might have a buyout. That's incredible. It's the world we're living in right now. It is the Modcast on a Tuesday. Thanks to Daily and Black, of course. Thanks to all of you, damn near 500 of you in the Specs chat. Speaking of, let's give Specs a little love. Might need to get stocked up. You got men's and women's basketball. You got baseball on a roll, a capital R roll, 17 in a row. If you need to get stocked up, here's Lisa with some ideas and a bunch of shelves of stuff.
At Specs, it doesn't cost a lot to turn a good time into a great time, especially if you like saving money. From connoisseur collectors to aficionados of ale, you'll find bubbly bliss at any budget with a Texas-sized selection of world-class wines, rare spirits, craft beers, and more. So when you're getting ready for a good time, Specs is ready to make it great. Because at Specs, the fun starts here.
Shout Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
All right. Hope y'all saw that normal. Mine was a little choppy. It was kind of sad. I didn't get to see all the bottles like I needed to. Hopefully you did. Get stocked up at Specs as soon as you can. So we talked a little Rodney Terry there. Before we move on to spring football, and I guess this is kind of spring football, but Anwar, I watched the Monday Overreaction show yesterday, and I heard you say that you still have some lingering Ryan Wingo feelings or thoughts that you kind of thinking about. So is there anything else you'd like to get off your chest? Would you like to maybe, I don't know, cover your right eye and read these letters, or, how do you want to do this?
That was IVT, I believe. It's still one of the more just fascinating off-season stories so far. Just to imagine just how the whole thing played out. Like, it still was something I was just thinking about on Monday, just how this whole thing plays out, where Ryan Wingo is just dropping balls during these winter conditioning things. And guys are like, man, this doesn't look right. Like, what is going on with our guy? And, they're doing the traditional coach stuff, trying to coach him up, look it in, so on and so forth. And then eventually for Wingo to have to have that moment that we all have as men, when you have to admit your weakness, and we don't want to admit that we're weak in a certain area. We always want to tough it through. And then as a man, you just have to say, all right, so here's the deal. I'm not really even seeing this ball until it gets close to me. I'm just going to be honest with you. And they're like, all right, well, you need to go to a doctor if this is the case, to go to a doctor and for them to say that, and Alex would have to help me out here. Somebody told me that he was as blind as a bear. Are bears blind? Like, what does that mean? I don't even know what that
Is this
means.
via text or via voice?
It was via text.
Maybe.
It was bear blind.
I think that could have been blind as a bat getting auto-corrected.
Because I was like,
autocorrect.
I was like, bear blind? I'm like, yeah. So maybe meant. I was like, I gotta ask Alex. He knows more about the outdoors than myself. So yeah. Maybe they meant bat blind. But apparently, like, multiple people said, like, it was bad. He has to get the LASIK. And so, obviously it probably affected him last year, a little bit this year. So it's cool that he's got it done, right? And I'm glad for the young man. And I know what it's like. Look, you and I, we weren't born with glasses, right? So we eventually had to had that admission, like, man, I can't see the way I would like to see. Yeah. So just that whole thought process of getting that thing corrected, and of course what it can look like going forward. It's a cool story. It's one that makes me chuckle, but I'm happy that it has a good ending for him.
Yeah, it makes me think of my favorite baseball movie, Major League, and Ricky Vaughn. They finally got to realize, like, oh, the closer can't see, and they realize it and they do something about it. But I mean, good for the kid too. Like Anwar, I know everybody wants to talk about it, but you said it perfectly. Like, all men run into it. I'm sure women would tell you there's moments too, but I can remember my moment where these things came back into play. I wore glasses as a kid, and then my vision kind of corrected and everything kind of rolled on. But there was a point where I had to admit what was going on. But for Ryan Wingo, first of all, to be a 5-star stud and you can't see the ball until it gets on you, that's incredible. But I thought it was a gutsy thing, and that's cool, man. They say sometimes you just got to ask for help, and that was what he was doing. Yeah. So, man, what is this going to look like when a corrected, Ryan Wingo with the vision is out there with Arch Manning? This should be wild to watch.
That's my question. Like, was he dealing with this all through high school, or was it just like a quick onset?
That's the thing I didn't understand, Jason. I was like, you have to take a physical before every football season, right, in high school. So an eye exam should have been part of that. So that's the thing that doesn't make any sense.
He did have a higher than you would like. I think 14% drop rate last year, which is higher than you want to see that thing when you're doing prospecting and stuff like that. When it gets above 9-10% drop rate, you start to talk about that as a concern. And I don't know what it exactly was for Wingo off the top of my head, but I remember being, not overly concerning, not like the Arian Smith from Georgia that couldn't catch a cold, but it like something where I remember thinking it was a little bit, just something to kind of keep in mind. But it wasn't like the guy he certainly didn't look blind as a bat or bear or whatever. And so my neighbor and my real good buddy, man, he's actually on Orange Bloods, and he's an optometrist. And so he was okay. So Cody has it in there, 12% drop rate last year for Wingo. So it's just a little tiny bit above the threshold, but not that really concerning. And when you think back on Wingo last year, you don't think, oh gosh, he was just a drop a minute. It's like, so I was texting with him about it, and he said, honestly, you can definitely see a myopic, because I'm like, what I asked him is, I said, could it have gotten worse from the fall to the spring? Like, is that possible? Right. Can it get bad? Like, and he's like, honestly, you can definitely see a myopic shift in college. It usually happens because of the increase in up close work.
Wow, the myopic shift.
Yeah. He says just between us, he's not very impressed with the team optometrist that to allow something like that to happen. I don't know if they have a team optometrist, but if an optometrist is telling me that he's not impressed with a team optometrist, maybe he knows more about whether they have optometrists around the team. But it sounds like he's saying this is something that this issue should have never come to this, where the player would have had to go to the coaching staff and it should have kind of been taken care of.
Yeah, and the thing is, he did get checked by the team optometrist before last season, and everything was clear.
Yeah, well, apparently that's not very impressive to some of his fellow optometrists.
That group chat is lighting his ass on fire, whoever that optometrist is.
Well, I keep thinking, guys, I asked Ketch the other day on House Divided if he's ever, felt like he cheated on an eye test. Because I've had situations like DMV stuff or whatever, where if I looked with both eyes, it was blurry. But if I closed one of my eyes or the other, I could read it. So I did, and I passed that eye test. I don't know if that's what I was supposed to do, but that's what I did. So I just wonder, like, was Ryan Wingo just reporting like, well, that's blurry, but I can tell it's an L or whatever the letter is, right? Was he just sort of reporting a blurry version and fighting through it like he had? And then to that optometrist point, maybe there was a little degeneration, and then, he noticed it. But whatever it is, if they can get him to 2020, or sometimes they even report like 2015 or even better, that's going to be just a lot of fun to watch. And hopefully, if other guys are going through it, they should say something, because he's not the first. We've been talking about all these different names. Michael Thompson came up from the Charlie Strong era. That story, I can still remember that press conference when Charlie Strong basically said, yeah, we've realized one of our DBs couldn't see. So we figured it out. We got him in there. And I always bring up Jameis Winston, the one, to me, the most famous of my life that I can remember. I watched him squint his way to a Heisman Trophy and a national title. And I kept thinking it from the first day I watched him play at Florida State. Why is he squinting? Where are the contacts? Why don't they get this fixed? And it wasn't until Anwar, I think he was a New Orleans Saint before he got LASIK. I think he
was in Tampa.
Was he in Tampa? Okay. I don't know. Because I
gotta go look. I gotta look it up. I mean, hell, Cody's the damn fact checker who's in the chat. He can tell you, but I feel like he may have been
but he let it go a while.
When that thing
happened. He let it go
Yeah.
way too long for me. I'm like, you're the quarterback and you're squinting at the sideline to get the call. But anyway, hopefully Ryan Wingo is going to have a great year in 2025 with that new awesome vision.
You also forget Costanza, the most famous squinter of them all, who was able to squint his way through life. So don't forget about him. Don't forget
the
about
great
George.
Squinters of all time.
That's going 45. Just put one of the great squinters in the chat. Do you remember all the? I guess you guys probably don't remember all the heart. Anwar, were you here for Gary Gilbert? I forgot. Was that?
No, that was a.
Why is he squinting?
Yeah.
Why is he squinting? Why does he
squint
so much? Yeah,
that's true. Lots of squinting going on. All right. Thank y'all for jumping in the chat today. Now, somebody jumped in the chat earlier, Alex, and kind of has a request for you, but I know you're going to want to get into this. Barb's 10 says, I'm here for the Beef Traders promo by Alex, best in the business.
You can take us off screen.
Alex, what do you prefer? You like this one here? What do you want?
Look, man, you don't really need to do much of a promo whenever you're talking about a product that's just the best in existence. You just don't. And that's what you get at Texas Beef Traders. You get 10% off by letting them know that you heard about them here on Orange Bloods Live, vaccine free, antibiotic free, steroid free, everything free, man. These cows get shot up with nothing. They're never intermingled with from any other herds. We have 3 different herds. 2 of these herds have been together for over 2,500 years. The Piedmontese herd and the Wagyu herd. You can't get any better. Texas Beef Traders, TexasBeefTraders.com. Tell them that we sent you. You'll be eating good.
Man, you got herd history going on. That was fantastic. Barb 10, you're absolutely right. And it always pumps me, always gets me hungry when Alex is talking Texas Beef Traders. Thank you for that. If you guys want to jump in the chat, feel free. Gentlemen, as we kind of wrap up the conversation today, when I was asking you guys kind of, hey, anything you want to specifically get into? And Alex just shot back with, it's a week till spring practice. So I thought that'd be a good place to kind of end up here and get y'all's thoughts. Alex, let me start with you on this. So we're a week away, and as practice is getting started for 2025, are you going to look at this team like you always do? Are you going to want to know the things on day one that you always want to know on day one? Or, does that Arch Manning ingredient change something? Or is there a different way you're looking at 2025 in terms of what you're excited about a week away?
Well, I'm always just excited to see how the team looks, right? I'm just excited to see just off the hoof, how do these guys look? I think I noticed last year that there was just a bunch of things physically that were so interesting to me. The Cam Williams, weight loss, how good he looked, how big and just good Trevor Gooseby looked. These kinds of things are all really important. I think, Chad, I think about this team a whole lot, and there's a whole different ways I could go here. I think it's just maybe one thing on defense. I'm interested in seeing everything, and I'm going to report on everything, and I'll have a real good breakdown of every practice that we're able to attend, and I'll make sure to get all the information that I can and get it to everybody. But I just from the off the hoof standpoint, I want to see how Travis Shaw looks, the defensive tackle. the defensive tackle transfer, just the defensive tackle transfers. I want to see how Cole Brevard looks, how Travis Shaw looks, how Hero Canoe looks, and sort of just how their bodies kind of fit in with the rest. It was a little bit of a shock last year going in and seeing the transfer portal defensive tackles for the first time and being like, okay, well, Tia Savea is much smaller than advertised, you know? And this, you know, this dude, Jermaine Lole, is built like, you know, he's built, you're talking about a guy that's built like a fire hydrant. Like that's that's your real fire hydrant guy and stuff. And Bill Norton looks like he's just got a pony keg attached to, you know, his chest and belly. And just, you know, so I'm just get a look at how these, from what I've seen in the photos, man, these guys look pretty monstrous. And so I want to get a gauge of that, go stand next to him, see how that looks. Cause obviously, you know, replenishing the interior defensive line is very important. The offensive line, I wrote about that today. I think it comes down to how three guys look. If it is going to be Neto Yamuzulo starting at left guard, you know, how does he look? How does Cole Hudson look if he's at center? And then Brandon Baker, I think the biggest question mark, but honestly, the one that comes with the most excitement and anticipation, right? That's your 5-star $1 million stud, right? Great balance, great feet, strong, moves well, uber athletic. How does he look at right tackle? Is he ready to go? They've certainly expended the resources on him as if to say, like, it's time to go. And it's funny, you mentioned Arch Manning. It's like, to me, that's the least. I'm not worried. I don't have any questions about Arch Manning. You know, we're talking about the guy that half the fan base was grumbling under their breath last season through the year, like, well, that guy should be starting over Quinn. You know what I mean? It's just like you've already seen him win games with bullets flying. You've seen him put his attributes on display at the spring games. We've seen it at practices and stuff like that. It's like people talk about Arch. It's like, yeah, you want to go see him, and maybe if he's any different with the way that he acts as a leader or something like that. But as far as Arch Manning, the player, I don't have much. Like, I know he's going to be really good. Like, I don't have much interest in you know, worrying myself over, you know, how this Arch Manning stuff's going to go. But Anwar will, of course, say it doesn't matter whether you're worried about it, what you think about it, what you do. It's like, man, hey, dude, you always stick with the quarterback. And especially when the quarterback's last name is Manning, and he's been a national story since the day he stepped foot on campus. And now we get to see him for the first time step onto an actual football field as the leader of the team. So from that,
Jason, Alex, is like going to a concert to see like your favorite band, and they go, "Hey, I want to play some stuff off my new album." And it's like, no, I didn't come here to hear the stuff off your new album. Like, I came here to hear the hits. Don't make me wait 30 minutes. Give me my damn hits. Like, that's what I want. So that's the quarterback. The quarterback that's the hits. And no, I don't want to hear stuff off the new album. Just give me my classics. And that's what I
Anwar, in 2025, when the guys that do what you do, when the men and women that do what y'all do are calling a source, are checking in with a source, how many times is it going to start with, what's Arch look like? How's Arch doing? What's going on with 16? Like, how many of those discussions are going to start with 16 this year?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't want it to, because I think there's a potential for Manning overload. I don't know if it can be hit though. If we're just being quite honest with you, I don't know if there will be enough Manning that people will have enough of. Or like, I don't need to know anything more about that guy. But I can't ignore it. I mean, it's you know, at the end of the day, I've only recently started talking about Arch because I'm kind of like, I don't want to overload it that way, but it's going to be a talking point. Even if it's not locally, it's going to be a national talking point. And so, because when this becomes a national talking point, then it's aggregated on our website and people, you know, start talking about it. So Alex is not wrong though. Like, just I'm actually on the same page with Alex. Like, the only other thing that I'm interested in that Alex didn't mention, and then maybe I interrupted you, and if I did, Alex, I apologize, was probably the running back situation. You know, for me, like, I want to know what that's going to look like. You know, CJ Baxter, he's not going to be participating in the spring. I'm hearing and I've heard that he may not even be ready until sometime in the season. So, CJ Baxter is a guy that we don't know what's going to look like. You've got Trey Wisner. There you got Jared Gibson, Christian Clark. I want to see what he looks like as being healthy. But Texas needs more out of its run game. And they didn't get enough out of that run game as they would. Now there's many factors that'll go into it, and they can tell you that they could have blocked better against Georgia, or they could have blocked better against Ohio State, and those are the reasons why. But I think at the end of the day, though, this run game has to, the yards per carry needs to increase, and they just need to get back. They needed their Jonathan Brooks. They maybe need that Roshan. It's kind of hard to duplicate a Bijan, right? But they need to have someone that can be the bell cow that they can lean on. So for me, what does the run game kind of look like? And it's kind of hard. We won't get an accurate gauge based off of what we're looking at. We're just going to be looking at drills, and everybody's going to look good in a damn drill. We don't know how the hell they're going to if they can bounce off a tackle or anything to that effect. But it would be something that I pay attention to for sure. In addition to the offensive line, which to me, honestly, is probably the most interesting out of all of them. With probably offensive line for me, defensive line for me, and then everything else kind of fills out.
Jason, what's on your mind as you hear the guys talk?
Yeah, they've covered most of what I would think. Offensive line, defensive line. The one thing that they haven't said that was one of the first things that popped in my head is the receiver rotation, especially with these. You got guys that are maybe going to miss some of spring. Which of these true freshman guys might be able to slide in, make an early impact? They're all on campus. We've heard, positive reviews, I think, on all three of them, kind of sporadic positive reviews. So I'm really interested to see how the receiver rotation, can Aaron Butler step? I heard this weekend up in Dallas, I heard Parker Livingstone's name thrown around with like glowing reviews. So, some of these young guys, either guys who are maybe redshirt freshmen, guys who are true freshmen that enrolled early, they're going to be thrown to the fire. So I want to see which of those guys can really step up, and when the pads are on and the action counts and scrimmages and those types of things, who's going to step up? Because I think there's a chance for a couple of those guys to be key components in that passing game in the fall. So we'll get Ryan Wingo last year made his early impression. Who's going to be the Ryan Wingo of this group? They're going to need at least one or two of those guys to step up.
I mean, and staying on that, I mean, you're right, and we hadn't mentioned tight end either. Mm-hmm. And
I just don't know who the answer is at tight end, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, but that's an area where you look at it and you'd have to say, okay, you go from Jatavian to Gunner, you go, and then you feel like, damn, you got really fortunate because Gunner played and was played pretty well, and then now it's like, well, who takes that? Is it Nye Black? Like, is it some of the younger guys? Like, I don't know.
I think the guy that has them, Jordan Washington, obviously, but yeah. I think Nick Townsend has a chance to be great, but he's still running track in his high school. He's not on campus this spring. He won't be going through spring practice. So, how much does that set him back? Yeah, the tight end thing's really concerning. Texas has been pretty spoiled the last few years at tight end, and this year, I don't know what the answer is.
It's going to have to be Jordan Washington.
Probably, but is he going to be an every down?
Don't know. They don't have anybody else though. It's not going to be. I don't think it'll be Spencer Shannon or Will Randall. And like you mentioned, Nick Townsend's not in town yet, so there isn't any. There's nobody else.
Yeah. The other interesting timing thing, guys, is as spring practice is developing, that portal's going to open and close. It's going to close right at the end, right? The Fan Fest is the 26th, and I think it closes on the 25th. So the last three positions that y'all discussed, the skill stuff on offense, the running back room, the wide receiver room, the tight end room, are all three of those rooms going to get a little help out of the portal as it's going on too?
They're going to want help. Would you say, tight end, offensive line, you say wide receiver?
Tight end, running back, and wide receiver?
Maybe running back too, yeah. I think tight end, I think offensive line, they'd love some veteran depth along the offensive line. Running back, yeah, you'd love some depth there. Wide receiver, you'd love to find an experienced guy there. I still think they'd take a defensive alignment if they can find some. But to me, I'm going to be interested in seeing that. I was talking to someone about that this weekend or last weekend, Chad. That spring portal to me because Texas is really late. Most schools started spring practice, a couple weeks ago.
Late, man. They're gonna have I'm gonna be at the draft for the last of the practices.
Yep.
So my point with that, though, Alex, is that guys that enter the spring practice at programs where their spring season is ending when the portal opens, those are going to be the guys probably that see the writing on the wall. Hey, I just went through spring practice at my school, and I didn't get much action. I'm buried on the depth chart. I don't see the spring transfer portal being super fruitful in terms of guys that can help a program like Texas. Maybe I'll be wrong. I don't know. We'll find out when the portal window opens next month. But to me, your bigger impact players probably entered the December window versus the April window. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it has happened that way in the past. You're right. We'll see if it is that way this year. A couple of great chats came in with questions for you guys. We will get to those before we wrap up. Also, let's continue to thank our great partners. And in this case, it's just one of my new favorite things in the world. It's pineapple vodka. That's right. Pineapple Deep Eddy vodka. That's the first bottle I purchased. And as you see, I went to Specs to do it. That's one way you can get your pineapple Deep Eddy vodka. It is the 9th flavor of Deep Eddy vodka. You want to go visit all 9 flavors at once? Head on out to the Deep Eddy vodka tasting room. Such a good time. All these cocktails are out there for you, and none of them involve the pineapple. These are the stuff that I got last time I was out there. I still haven't been out there to see what the new cocktails are with pineapple. I can only...
You had all those?
Every one of them, Jason. All of them. Yeah, every single one. Thankfully, we were the big group, so I didn't have to drink all these. We didn't have to do all that. That's your QR code, though. And remember to pair it up with that great barbecue they've got out there. The Crimson Creek Smokehouse Barbecue is awesome. And it does include a 3-pound tomahawk steak that you have to order a day in advance. So if you're interested in something like that, get on out to the Deep Eddy Vodka tasting room for all kinds of good, tasty stuff. All right. We did.
They bring it on those. They can, but Jason, you're joking. They have those flights out there that they can bring it on.
Those weren't flights, though. Those were full.
I understand, but you get what I'm saying. Like they have the smaller versions of.
Hey, flights are for wimps, Omar. Bring on the big boys. Let's do it. Let's roll through it. You and I are going to Uber out there one day, and we're going to roll.
Here's the dangerous part, fellas, and I say it every time. If somebody's going to go out there, we did a tasting the last time with all 8 flavors, and they give you just a little bitty bit of that vodka, but it's so smooth. You're like a quarter of the way through this tasting and you realize, whoa, you are feeling it. So please enjoy responsibly when you head out to the Deep Eddy Vodka tasting room, because it is some of the smoothest vodka out there. All right. A couple of good chats I want to get y'all's thoughts on. First off, Alex, a hardcore offensive line question I think was directed at you when you were talking O-line. Obviously Gooseby on the first one. Is this your idea for the starters? Gooseby, Neto, Hudson, Campbell, Baker. Would that be your prediction right now?
From left to right, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. There you go.
I'd be borderline. I wouldn't say shocked. I'm not shocked by anything, but borderline shocked if it was anything else.
Yeah.
At least to start spring ball. Start.
And then the other one I love, fellas, for all of you. I love this one from Naman. Thank you for jumping in. Hey, guys, we are 4 for 4 with true freshmen being impressive. They're going with Worthy, Banks, Hill, and Simmons. Who's that player this year? Gee, no pressure.
I'm not sure any player stepping into the same kind of opportunity that any of those guys were, right?
So that's what I'm thinking. You got to look at depth.
Yeah,
chart,
so
right?
Because the program's been built up now.
That's a great point.
Every time, but I would say if we're the guys where it's like talent meets opportunity, I would look at Justice Terry, who of course it looks like he'll be backing up Ethan Burke at the strong side defensive end for now, en route to eventually moving into the 3 technique. I think if he gets into a 2 deep, he's talented enough to where he's going to make a significant impact. Staying on defense, the only other guy I see that looks to – and look, this could be wrong. We could end up being at the end of spring ball and be like, who would have known that Josiah Sharma was going to emerge as this monster at nose or something? But just coming into it, I'd say that the other one on defense would maybe be Cade Phillips. We'll talk.
Damn, dude, you stole the 2 I was going to say, Alex.
Okay.
Those are the exact 2 I was thinking.
as far, and then I'm not even sure on offense. Just it's like pin the tail on the donkey, or blindfold yourself and throw a dart at your choice of Khalil Lockett or Jamie French or Michael Terry or Dalen McCutcheon. I would generally say that Dalen McCutcheon probably would have less of a chance because the slot I kind of think he'll play slot, and the slot wide receiver in Sark's offense only plays about 50% of snaps. And from what we've seen so far, that's just always been either Jordan Whittington or DeAndre Moore, right? Those haven't been – it's a decreased number of snaps to begin with, and they don't really rotate guys in there like they do the outside spots. So I say maybe McCutcheon a little bit less likely, but certainly talent meets opportunity, I would say, with those guys. Lockett, French, and Terry mainly. And that's, again, nothing against McCutcheon's skill set. I just think I project he'll play in a position that's going to have fewer snaps to go around. But those would be my candidates.
Jason, Anwar, any other names pop in your head on that?
No.
I mean, I previously reported that Phillips and Justice Terry was turning her heads. I think last week in the War Room, I reported about McCutcheon and basically how the staff loves him and his work ethic, his football IQ, and he's made it. He's hit the ground running here. Those are the only three that I can think of as this moment.
I love someone said Lance Jackson in the chat, and like Mike Torres. I mean, listen, Lance is fantastic, but like Alex said, you got to have some opportunity there. I mean, who's Lance going to bump? I mean, Lance is going to be a great player for Texas, I think, but I don't know it'll be this year. He's got a lot of people in front of him when he did.
I think I guess the general idea, if you're on defensive line somewhere, the thought is, I guess, if you're enough of a stud, it's a rotational kind of position. But you're right, Jason. You got to get those reps. Here's somebody, our man Cody Carpentier. He likes Lockett, going with Khalil Lockett as maybe a freshman. Here's another quick question. What position are they starting Michael Terry out in? I know there's been a lot of discussion throughout the process, Jason. When we talked in the recruiting version of it, is he a receiver, or do they consider it kind of a flex tight end kind of a thing? How do you see Michael Terry as a college player?
I think he's going to start out working with the receivers, but I mean, he's going to have certain packages where he'll do, flex tight end. They'll put him in the offensive backfield sometimes. I mean, they'll find creative ways to get him the ball, but my understanding is he's going to start out working with the receivers.
Gotcha. That's right.
Yeah, Ron, I'm going to get you. I want you, Ron, I want you to think about subscribing to Orange Bloods. But to just think about it. It's not a condemnation or anything like that. I just want you to think about it because I had that probably back in January that said that he's going to start off at the receiver position.
I knew I read that somewhere. I couldn't remember.
I know where he read it. I know where he read it.
And so the tight end thing, while he could, they would love him at that point, love for him to walk in one day and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. At the end of the day, he wants to play receiver. That's what he wants to do. They're not going to force it. They're not going to push him, they're not going to push him out of it. So he's going to be a receiver. He's going to be a big receiver, and Texas is leaning towards trying to go with bigger, more physical receivers, as they kind of see that the physicality that's there in the SEC. So while Sark always loves speed, he's also trying to blend speed with some power. Your Ryan Wingo would be like your example, your Lockett that you're looking at, the guys that they signed in this class, and so Jamie French as well. Obviously, Terry's a little bit bigger than those guys, but and Dalen's probably the smallest of them all. So, but you're going to see that blend as well. So, but starting off with the
perfect opportunity to throw that QR code up there and remind everybody, orangebloods.com, go check it out. All the great stuff that has always been there, plus new stuff that's being added, new articles being added, new information, making sure you got the very latest in recruiting and the team coming up and all the breakdowns that you're looking for. Jason's 321 article. Anwar's got the Sunday pulpit each and every Sunday. Alex breaking things down from his perspective. And as he told you, once the spring practice begins and we get the media is able to get some eyes on it, his breakdowns are going to be all over the place. So check all that out. Cody Carpentier jumped in the chat today. He just put out the Behind Enemy Lines article. By the way, fellas, a couple years ago, if you tell me that I needed to put Bill Belichick flips an Aggie D tackle commit on my Aggie bingo card, I would have said you were crazy. But apparently that's a thing too. So you can check all that out at orangebloods.com. Thanks to all of y'all jumping in the chat. We appreciate you. Before we get out of here, I do want to give Texas Card House a little bit of love. First off, with Hijack Poker, hijackpoker.com, online poker in the great state of Texas. Anybody in the state of Texas can play. All you got to do is just scan that code, put it on any device you want, put it on a bunch of devices. And remember, you can deposit and cash out at one of those 6 Texas Card House locations. You can also deposit a whole lot of other ways to get to once you get on hijackpoker.com. We also want to invite you to come on out to TCH Social Austin. If you haven't seen that largest TV in North Austin, they're going to split it up 4 ways on Thursday for the first day of the tournament. You're looking for a place to watch the tournament? Trust us, this is the place. This is that new sports lounge. You may not know about it yet, but you need to. You do not need to be a poker player to enjoy Texas Card House Social Austin. It's right there at 183 and Anderson Mill, right by the aquarium. We did watch parties there this year. If you missed all those, or maybe you just want to come see us, come on out. Ketch and I'll do House Divided from out there during those first couple games as they get started on Thursday. And then we're just going to sit and watch basketball and enjoy some of that incredible food. The Bad Beat Bacon is something. If you have not had that, the rest of the menu's great. And the drink specials and drink selection is incredible too. Whether you want to go Anwar's old-fashioned route or you just want to have a great beer, they got a lot of good stuff out there. So come on out and see us at TCH Social on Thursday for the tournament. Cannot wait for that. Speaking of the tournament, fellas, before we get out of here, I just got one buy or sell for all of you, and it is this simple. If you were CDC and the men's team gets to the Sweet 16, you'd keep Rodney Terry. Anwar, I'll start with you. Buy or sell?
I'd sell on it. I mean, you're just kicking the can down the road at that point. So if you've made up your mind that you're going to go in a different direction, then the Sweet 16 is cool. Don't be a prisoner of the moment. You get to get your program to where you want it to be.
Anwar says time to move on. Alex, buy or sell?
Dude, I mean, 3 words. Sell Jeremy Foley.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay. If it needs to be done, it needs to be done now. Fair enough. Jason, buy or sell?
You're on mute.
I'm selling as well. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
That would be a tough call to make, right? To say, hey, you just took us to the Sweet 16, but we're going to kick you to the curb. But I'm with everybody else, man. Like Almer said, you're kicking the can down the curb. A change needs to be made. So as tough as it would be after a Sweet 16 appearance, yeah, I'm still making a change.
Yeah, I think you guys are probably right on that. All right, anything else we need to hit, fellas, before we get out? Everybody good?
I'm good.
All right, we remind you to like, subscribe, get those notifications. If you didn't like it on the way in, go ahead and like it on the way out. Just Alex talking Texas Beef Traders is worth a like. Come on, give that a like. And also, speaking of Alex and Cody, Football with Friends at 6 this evening. Anwar's got the old-fashioned for you tomorrow morning at 9. And then Jason and I have the recruiting hour for you, digging deeper into recruiting at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Do that on Wednesdays. And then got House Divided at noon tomorrow as well. By the way, for those of you who dig the Outsiders, we do appreciate you. No Outsiders this week with basketball going on right there at that 8 o'clock, 8:10, 8:30 time. The fellas wanted to watch the game. So no Outsiders this week. Thank y'all for jumping in. We'll be back next week, next Tuesday at noon for another edition of the Modcast. Y'all take care. This is Orange Bloods Live.